Imagine going on the trip of a lifetime. You're thousands of miles away, relaxing on a beach in Thailand. The sun is shining, the waves are calm, and for once, life feels perfect. You're sipping coconut water, snapping photos, and living your best life without a care in the world. Now imagine coming back home and finding a total stranger living in your house. Not just squatting. Not just breaking in. No. They legally own it. At least, on paper. They show you documents. A signed deed. Everything looks official. But there's one big problem. You never sold your house. You never signed anything. You didn't even know your home was listed for sale. Sounds like a nightmare, right? For me, it wasn't a dream. It was real. And the person behind it wasn't a random scammer. It was someone I thought I could trust, or at least, someone who lived just a few houses away. Karen, the HOA president. The woman who always acted like she owned the neighborhood. The one who sent nasty emails about garbage bins being out too long. The one who knocked on doors just to complain about lawns that weren't perfectly trimmed. We all know a Karen. But this one, she took it to a whole new level. While I was walking through markets in Chiang Mai, she was walking through my house, pretending it was hers to sell. While I was enjoying temples and street food, she was forging documents with my name on them. And while I was thinking everything was fine back home, she was literally erasing me from my own property records. At first, I didn't believe it. I thought it was some kind of mistake. Maybe the county made an error. Maybe I misunderstood what I was seeing. But no. It was all real. All planned. And it all started while I was gone. She didn't just sneak in and change the locks. She created fake ownership papers, used a fake LLC she made up, and sold my house to an actual buyer. Someone who thought they were buying a legitimate property. Someone who moved in legally, with no idea that the person who sold it to them wasn't even the owner. By the time I landed back in the US, the damage was done. My house, the one I had lived in for years, was gone. My things were gone. My name, wiped off the title like I never existed. And the worst part? The buyer had no clue. They were just as confused as I was. So how did this even happen? How could someone like Karen pull off something this insane? How did I get my house back? And what happened to her in the end? It's a wild ride. And it gets worse before it gets better. I live in a quiet suburb. Nothing fancy. Not rich, not poor. Just a peaceful, middle-class neighborhood where most people keep to themselves. Families, retirees, a few young couples. The kind of place where neighbors wave but don't really talk. But there was one person everyone knew. Her name was Karen. She wasn't just any neighbor. She was the self-declared queen of the block. Technically, she was the president of our small HOA. But in her mind, she ran the entire neighborhood. She'd walk around with a clipboard, pointing out rule violations like she was some kind of inspector. Too many weeds. You'd get a note. Trash cans out too early. Another note. She once told a new family to repaint their front door because the color didn't match the community vibe. Most people just ignored her. Some tried to be polite. I mostly kept my distance. She wasn't dangerous, just annoying. Or so I thought. The HOA itself wasn't a big deal. We paid small fees, and the rules were basic. Keep your yard clean, no crazy paint jobs, stuff like that. Nothing strict. But Karen took it seriously. Too seriously. She'd hold meetings nobody went to. She'd type up long emails about rule changes that never got approved. It felt like a power trip for her. I never gave her much thought. I paid my dues, kept my lawn tidy, and stayed out of her way. We weren't friends, but we were civil. She lived just a few houses down, and sometimes I'd see her walking her dog, giving me that tight-lipped smile she reserved for people she didn't really like. So when I decided to take a long vacation to Thailand, I did what any responsible homeowner would do. I locked up, told a couple of trusted neighbors I'd be gone for 2 weeks, and even sent a quick message to the HOA email, mostly as a courtesy. I didn't expect a reply. I just figured it was polite to let them know I'd be out of the country. Before I left, everything was normal. My house was fine. Bills were paid. Nothing out of place. I double-checked my locks, paused my mail, and even left a light on a timer to make it look like someone was home. I've traveled before. I always take precautions. And at the time, I had no reason to worry. It was just a vacation. Something I'd saved up for. 2 weeks to relax, reset, and forget about work, stress, and yes, even Karen. But while I was halfway around the world, she was planning something. Something I never would have imagined. Looking back, there were small signs. Things I didn't pay attention to. Little red flags I brushed off. I didn't know it then, but the moment I locked my door and headed to the airport, she saw an opportunity. A chance to do something bold. Something illegal. Something I wouldn't discover until it was too late. Thailand was everything I had hoped for. Warm weather, amazing food, friendly people. I traveled light, stayed in small guest houses, and made friends with other travelers along the way. I visited ancient temples, swam in crystal-clear water, and ate street food that blew my mind. Back home felt like a distant memory. I was so relaxed, I barely checked my phone. I posted a few photos on social media, replied to a couple of texts, but mostly, I stayed off the grid. It felt good. For once, I wasn't thinking about work, bills, or anything stressful. About halfway through the trip, I got a message from a friend back home. Just a quick, "Hey, how's Thailand?" Nothing strange. We chatted for a bit, and they mentioned that someone had seen people around my house. At first, I didn't think much of it. I figured maybe a delivery or a neighbor checking on things. I'd asked one friend to stop by and water a plant near the porch. Nothing seemed weird. But now I wonder, was that the moment it all started? My last few days in Thailand flew by. I didn't suspect a thing. I packed up, said goodbye to the friends I'd made, and caught my flight home feeling refreshed. The whole way back, I was already planning my next trip. When I landed, I was exhausted. Jet lag hit hard, but I was happy to be home. I called a ride from the airport and headed straight to my house. It was late evening when I arrived. I remember pulling up to the curb and seeing something that didn't make sense. There were lights on. Inside my house. At first I froze. Maybe I left something on? Maybe the timer malfunctioned? But then I noticed the car in the driveway. A car I didn't recognize. I got out of the car and walked up slowly. The porch light was on. The welcome mat was different. And when I reached for my keys, they didn't work. The lock had been changed. I stood there, confused, tired, and honestly a little scared. I knocked on the door. A woman answered. She looked just as confused to see me. I asked her what she was doing in my house. She said, "I live here. We just moved in last week." I thought it was a prank. Maybe a misunderstanding. I told her this was my house. I showed her my ID, even pulled up a utility bill I had on my phone. She looked nervous and said, "We bought this house. We have the papers." She closed the door and came back with a man, her husband, and a folder. Inside were official documents. A deed. A bill of sale. Everything. And my name wasn't on anything. I was standing on the porch of a house I legally didn't own anymore. I didn't know what to say. My mind just froze. I kept staring at the papers like maybe I'd find a mistake, a typo, something that would prove this wasn't real. But it all looked official. Stamped. Signed. Notarized. My house. Asterisk sold star. And apparently, I had signed everything. Except I didn't. I tried to stay calm. I told the couple I had just come back from overseas and I never sold my house to anyone. They looked shocked. I could tell they weren't faking it. They had kids. Their stuff was already unpacked. They even had family photos up on the wall. This wasn't some scam on their part. They truly believed they owned the house. I left without causing a scene. I sat in my car and just stared at the dashboard. How could this happen? Was it identity theft? A paperwork error? I had no idea where to start. I ended up crashing at a friend's place that night, still in shock, still trying to make sense of it all. The next morning, I went straight to the county records office. I gave them my address and asked who the current listed owner was. The woman behind the counter typed it in, looked at the screen, then read off a name I didn't recognize. A company name. Something like Clearview Property Holdings, LLC. I asked her to print the record. When I looked closer, my jaw dropped. The sale had gone through 2 weeks earlier, while I was still in Thailand. The paperwork showed my name and signature on the seller's line, but it wasn't mine. It was a sloppy fake. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. The documents included a fake power of attorney form, authorizing someone to sign on my behalf. The notary stamp was real, but I had never met the notary listed. And then I saw the registered agent name for the LLC. Karen. It was her full name. The same Karen who ran our HOA. The same Karen who always acted like she was the boss of everyone. The same Karen who now, somehow, had managed to list, sell, and transfer my house while I was away, using forged documents. I felt sick. Angry. But more than anything, I felt betrayed. She lived just a few houses down. She waved at me. She smiled at me. And all the while, she had been planning this behind my back. I called a lawyer that same day. He looked over the documents and confirmed my worst fear. This wasn't just a mistake. It was fraud. Serious fraud. He told me not to confront her yet, and that we'd need to collect more proof before going to the police. So that's what I did. I got to work. Quietly. Carefully. Trying to gather everything I could. Because one thing was now very clear to me. This wasn't just some paperwork trick. Karen had committed a crime. A big one. And I was going to make sure she paid for it. I spent the next few days deep in research mode. Every spare moment was filled with emails, phone calls, and digging through records. My lawyer helped me request every document related to the sale, title transfers, listing agreements, notary logs, even security footage from the real estate office that handled the transaction. Piece by piece, it all started coming together. And the more we found, the worse it looked for Karen. First, we discovered the fake LLC, Clearview Property Holdings, had been registered just a few weeks before the house was sold. The address linked to the LLC. Karen's house. Her name was listed as the registered agent, and the business email was the same one she used for HOA matters. She hadn't even tried to hide it. Next, we looked at the power of attorney form. It claimed I had authorized Karen to handle the sale of my home while I was out of the country for medical treatment. That part hit me hard. She knew I was in Thailand. She twisted it into a lie that made the sale look legal. But the signature? It wasn't mine. Not even close. We also tracked down the notary. When my lawyer called her, she was confused. She swore she never met me and never notarized that document. Turns out, the stamp was stolen. Karen had copied a real notary seal and pasted it onto a fake form. That alone was a felony. And the real estate agent? We contacted him too. He said a woman claiming to be my legal representative had come into his office with signed paperwork and a convincing story. She said I had moved abroad and wanted to sell quickly. She even had a fake phone number with my name on the caller ID that she used to verify everything. The agent believed her. This wasn't just bold, it was calculated. Karen had built an entire story. Fake identities. Fake documents. Fake business. All to sell a house she didn't own and pocket the money. I couldn't even imagine how she thought she'd get away with it. Maybe she figured I'd be gone longer. Maybe she assumed I'd never find out. Or maybe, like most entitled people, she thought the rules didn't apply to her. Once we had all the proof, my lawyer contacted the authorities. We handed everything over, the forged documents, the emails, the business registration, the notary statement, and the real estate agent's testimony. The case moved fast from there. Detectives showed up at Karen's house with a warrant. She tried to act confused at first, like she had no idea what they were talking about. But when they showed her the paperwork, her face changed. She was arrested right on her front lawn, in full view of the neighbors she used to boss around. That was only the beginning of what turned out to be a much bigger storm. The news spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. One day Karen was the queen of the block, walking her little dog like nothing could touch her. The next, she was being loaded into the back of a police cruiser in handcuffs. People peeked through curtains. Some stood on their porches, phones in hand, whispering to each other. No one had expected this. Not from her. The charges were serious. Fraud. Forgery. Identity theft. Real estate fraud. She was hit with everything they could throw at her. And honestly, it still didn't feel like enough. But even with her arrested, the damage wasn't magically fixed. The couple living in my house? They were caught in the middle of the mess. They had no clue the sale was fake. They paid real money. They had kids. They were just as shocked as I had been. It wasn't their fault, but I wanted my home back. My lawyer worked with theirs, and we kept everything civil. Nobody wanted a screaming match or a lawsuit war. The buyers had to move out, but they weren't left on the street. They went after Karen too, filing their own legal claims. I heard later she had drained her savings trying to settle everything, but it still wasn't enough. Meanwhile, I started the long process of reversing the sale. It wasn't easy. I had to file affidavits, go through court hearings, and prove over and over again that I hadn't sold my home. That I didn't know about the LLC. That the power of attorney was fake. Every step felt like reliving the nightmare. At one point, I had to walk through my house with an officer and a court rep to confirm what was mine. Some of my stuff was gone, thrown out or sold. The rest was boxed up in the garage. It felt like walking through someone else's life, even though it was supposed to be mine. Eventually, the court ruled in my favor. My name was put back on the deed. The house was legally mine again. But the emotional damage? That stayed for a while. I couldn't sleep at first. I kept checking the locks, waking up in the middle of the night, wondering what else might go wrong. I even put up security cameras, just to feel safe. As for Karen, last I heard, she was still waiting for trial. Her lawyer tried to argue that she had mental health issues and didn't fully understand what she was doing. But the evidence said otherwise. This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment mistake. This was planned, detailed, and carefully executed. She lost her position on the HOA, of course. But that felt like the least of it. The entire neighborhood saw her for who she really was. Entitled. Manipulative. Dangerous. She wasn't just the annoying neighbor anymore. She was a criminal. One who thought she could take anything she wanted and never get caught. I started putting my life back together, but nothing felt the same. Even though the court had ruled in my favor, even though Karen was out of the picture, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had to look over my shoulder. It's strange how one act of betrayal can change the way you see everything. Your home, your neighborhood, even your sense of safety. People I barely knew from around the block started coming up to me, asking what really happened. Some apologized for thinking I'd just sold my house and vanished. Others shared their own strange run-ins with Karen over the years. She'd tried to fine people for imaginary HOA rules. She'd told someone they couldn't build a small shed in their backyard, even though there was no rule against it. Looking back, it was clear, she'd been pushing boundaries for a long time. She just finally pushed too far. But even with her gone, the whole ordeal left a scar. I'd walk past her house, which sat empty for weeks, and feel a mix of anger and disbelief. How could someone live so close, look you in the eye, and then try to erase you from your own life? I wasn't just angry at her. I was frustrated with how easy it had been for her to do it. The system failed. Real estate agents trusted a fake document. County offices processed forged papers without blinking. Nobody checked with me, not once. It was like I didn't exist the moment she decided to write me out. That realization haunted me. If it could happen to me, it could happen to anyone. You don't expect someone to literally steal your house. But they can. And with the right lies and a few fake forms, they can make it look legal. I became paranoid about paperwork. I added alerts to my property records. I subscribed to identity monitoring services. I froze my credit. Things I never thought I'd need to do just to feel normal again. And through all of this, I kept wondering what her plan had been. Did she think I'd never come back? Did she believe she'd sell the house, keep the cash, and disappear? Or was it something even darker, some power trip, a need to control everything around her? She never apologized. Not once. She never tried to explain herself. At her first court hearing, I was there. She looked around the courtroom like it was some kind of inconvenience, not the fallout of a massive fraud. Her lawyer did most of the talking. She just stared ahead, cold and blank, like none of it really mattered. But it mattered to me. My home. My peace. My trust. And after everything, I couldn't help but ask myself one final question. What kind of person looks at someone else's life, their memories, their space, and thinks, "I deserve this more than you do"? As the trial drew closer, the neighborhood kept buzzing with speculation. Some people thought Karen would take a plea deal. Others were convinced she'd try to spin the whole thing, blame someone else, or claim it was all a misunderstanding. But nobody really knew what to expect. She'd already shocked us once. Who's to say she wouldn't do it again? I tried to stay focused on my own life, getting my house back in order, returning to work, slowly reclaiming the peace I used to have. But every time I saw a legal update or got an email from my lawyer, that knot in my stomach came back. I didn't want revenge. I wanted closure. I wanted her to admit what she did and face the consequences. The prosecution built a solid case. Every forged document was presented. The fake LLC. The fraudulent power of attorney. The notary's testimony. Even the real estate agent who'd unknowingly helped her took the stand. He explained how Karen had seemed calm, professional, even helpful. She had answers for every question. She'd rehearsed her story well. It was chilling to hear how convincing she had been. The prosecution didn't have to work hard to prove intent. Karen left a trail. She didn't cover her tracks. She used her own name in the paperwork, her own email address, even her personal phone number. It was like she thought she was untouchable, that no one would ever question her, because she had a title next to her name, HOA president. Her defense didn't hold up. They tried to argue that she had been acting out of concern, that she thought I had abandoned the home, and that she had followed procedure. But no procedure involves forging someone's signature, faking a legal identity, and pocketing hundreds of thousands of dollars. What struck me most was how flat she looked in court. No emotion. No remorse. Just the same blank stare she'd had the day she was arrested. It was like she had detached herself from the reality of what she'd done. Maybe she believed her own lies. Or maybe she just didn't care. When the jury delivered their verdict, it was fast. Guilty on all major counts. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel triumph. Just relief. Like I could finally breathe again. Karen was taken into custody immediately after sentencing. No second chances. No bail. She was led out of the courtroom in handcuffs, just like before, but this time it was final. She wouldn't be returning to our neighborhood. Her house was seized. Her reputation, whatever was left of it, was gone. I walked out of the courthouse that day feeling a little lighter. Not happy, exactly. Just done. But there was one detail I never forgot, one that still lingers in my mind. During the trial, one of the emails she sent to the real estate office had a subject line. Just 3 words. Asterisk, he won't know. Asterisk. And for a while, she was right.